Monster Energy Big 12 Football Media Days are officially in the books. What are my takeaways and what were the big moments of the event? I'm going to talk about that in this episode of Couz's Corner, brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app, and the folks over at Mountaineer Travel, where you can plan your travel and also help the Mountaineers. It was a great week. It was a great 2 days, I should say. It was a tiring 2 days, but it was an awesome experience for me to be able to go to Big 12 Media Days. Hope to get to go back again in the future. We will see whether that happens or not, but it was an awesome experience. I really enjoyed it. But there were a lot of interesting things said, interesting, I guess, observations from, West Virginia specific, and then also the Big 12 as a whole. I obviously did not spend much time focusing on what other coaches had to say. My time was having to be spent, focusing on my show, getting ready for my show. Day 2, I had 5 interviews to do, and of course, I do all my own editing. So, I was pretty busy on that day 2. I did not have a chance to take in many press conferences or anything. And of course, day 1, was the big deal. There was Brett Yormark's announcement about the monster deal, and of course, the back and forth he had with the media member about Texas Tech. I'll talk about all of that in the show I did from the venue on day 1, which is part of a playlist I put together, by the way. If you want to go check out all the interviews I did with West Virginia players, Coach Rodriguez and Ren Baker, in addition to that show I did on day 1, it's all right there in a Big 12 Media Day playlist I put together. I will leave a link to that playlist at the end of this show. And by the way, if you like this show and my coverage, please do me a favor. Please give me a thumbs up on this video. It really helps the algorithm. Now, my takeaways are broad. Let's first off talk about my takeaways specific to West Virginia. On day 2 was not as much fireworks, wasn't as much buzz from the media on day 2. Did not seem like there were even as many people there on day 2, to be honest with you. Day 1, you had Texas Tech, you had Colorado, you had BYU, the teams that are getting probably the most media attention, national media attention, were all there on day 1, so there was a lot more buzz and a lot more busyness on day 1. Day 2, a lot more laid back as far as, in general. For me, it wasn't, but it was for in general for most of the people there. And again, much smaller crowd. And of course, day 2 was when West Virginia did their thing, right? The players, the coaches. But Rich Rod might have had the most eyebrow-raising moment of the day on day 2 when he took the podium for his press conference on the main stage. He was the last one to go. He was asked a question by a member of the media, but this member of the media basically asked him about the backyard brawl rivalry and about getting it back on the schedule, now that it's on hiatus. And Rich Rod answered that question in his very own unique Rich Rod way. I'm going to play this clip for you, then I'm going to react to it.
Well, I think we tried. I think we got Pitt coming back in 28, maybe in 3 years, and that'll be great. I mean, we should be playing them every year, and so we'll get them back. Now, I don't know how long that's going to keep going after that, but I think all what's happened in college athletics, part of the conference expansions and breakups, whatever, has caused some of those traditional rivalries to go by the wayside. I mean, I've got my own opinions. I'm not afraid to share my own opinions. I love the Big 12, but it'd be nice to have some regional, have us all come together. Can't we all come together and shake hands and give each other a group hug, and then have a Eastern Regional and a South Regional and a North Regional, and then everybody share the money, and there's money for everybody. We all can get along, like 60 of us or so. I think that would be great. I don't know did anybody else say that? Probably not. They might be afraid. I don't care. I think that would be good. So I'm going to put my pitch right now. I'm not speaking for anybody other than Coach Rod, that he would love for all the Power 4 teams to come together, shake hands, and then, hey, let's get the biggest TV package in the history of TV packages, and then we can have Pitt and Virginia Tech and Penn State and Maryland and Cincinnati and maybe Virginia or North Carolina, one of those all right there, and our fans can drive to it. You know, we have a rivalry every year, and everybody make money. Nobody gets fired. Players get good, and and then this place will be packed again, and we can have this will be the how would you call it, the Texas regional kind of, and it would, so you guys would come. Wouldn't that be fun? Can we put that together? I got all the ADs out there shaking their head like I'm nuts. But this is, I got more time, a lot more time behind me than ahead of me. I want to just get this thing right before I leave.
A rant that only someone like Rich Rod himself could do, right? Got more time behind me than I do in front of me. I'm going to say what's on my heart. He wants a super conference. All the Power 4 teams to basically come together, form a super league, and split up into regions so that they can play their rivals, all their rivals, every year. It will be easier for fans. And I'll be honest with you. Kudos to Coach Rod for having the balls to do that, whether it's right or wrong. 2, I think majority of college football fans probably agree with him. But Rich Rod said, hey, I'm speaking for myself here, not anybody else. I think most college football fans would probably like that setup, that deal. Now, maybe the SEC and Big Ten, maybe not. But there might, maybe there could be more. I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but I think Rich Rod probably speaks for a large portion, if not a majority, of college football fans. I've seen a lot of West Virginia accounts on social media, giving kudos to Coach Rod for making that statement, for saying what he said. I talked to some people at the event that I won't mention on here who gave him kudos for doing that. I mean, awesome that he had the guts to do that. Now, was it ideal to do it at a Big 12 event? Probably not. But again, Rich Rod's going to do what Rich Rod does, and he has a right to say to speak his opinion. And again, kudos to him for having the guts to do it. But I thought that was very interesting. But I've seen some pushback somewhat on social media. Well, he might have just, basically said he wants teams in his own league, maybe even West Virginia, to be left out. That's not what he's saying. I don't think he was being literal as far as the number of teams. He said the Power 4. He wants the Power 4 to get together, form their own league, or do their own TV deal anyway, and then divide up into separate conferences, or at least separate divisions or whatever based on regionality. And even went as far as to say, hey, this thing here would be packed. Everybody'd be excited. You have all the you have the Texas teams all here at once. So, and look, he didn't bash the Big 12 at all. He didn't say the Big 12 was a bad league. I think he's like, you know what? Let's have some common sense around this thing, right? Let's have common sense around. And the Big 12 may not even have to go away in that case. You can have a Big 12, but it would be more regional. Look, again, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, or talking off the cuff here about that, but I just, maybe it wasn't the right time for Rich Rod to say it, but he did it, and I'm sure he doesn't really care. I mean, he obviously knew what he was doing and didn't sugarcoat it and threw it out there. So kudos to him. All right. Let's focus on the field. Let's go talk about on the field stuff now. WVU brought 3 players, Jameer Latimer, Nick Krahe, Jaden Bray. I was able to interview all 3 of them, all fantastic young men, all very intelligent, well-spoken, polite, well-mannered. They carried themselves well, were great representatives of West Virginia University and the football program. I want to throw that out there. Again, please check out my interviews. In the playlist I'll link to later. But what I found interesting is Nick Krahe was one of the players there, and Rich Rod mentioned him in one of the times he spoke to the media. I don't remember which one. He actually said that he thinks Nick Krahe, not only was he their most consistent lineman last year, he believes that Nick Krahe has a chance to be one of the best linemen in the Big 12 in 2026. Pretty bold statement. Rich Rod's coached a lot of great offensive linemen. He's coached some all-conference O-linemen, some NFL level O-linemen in his career. And he thinks Nick Krahe has a chance to be one of the best in the league. That's saying a lot. So kudos to Nick Krahe for the work he's put in, the time he's put in. He's being moved apparently. Rick Trickett and Coach Rod talked about this as well. Coach Trickett apparently is going to be moving him or has moved him from left tackle to left guard. He thinks guard is his more natural position, and according to everything that has been said, he did very well there in the spring. So it looks like Nick Krahe will be potentially anyway. I know he'll have some competition, but he has a legit chance and is likely to be the starting left guard for West Virginia and could catapult that into a career playing on Sunday. So kudos to him. He's absolutely jacked. He's a big dude, but he doesn't have a ton of body fat. He is a big human being. Big human being. And but again, big arms, muscular, well-built. All these guys were. I mean, heck, they're elite athletes, right? They have to be. But Nick Krahe looks the part. He's a leader. He's a lead by example kind of guy. And Coach Rod thinks he has the chance to be one of the best linemen in the league. That was one huge takeaway I got. When talking with Jameer Latimer II, who is the nickel safety who transferred over from Wisconsin, older brother of freshman running back Amari Latimer, he is so excited, and we talked about this quite a bit in my interview with him. He is so excited to be playing with his younger brother. He said it's a dream come true for them two to be on the same college team. I mean, obviously, I think they're living together, they're playing together. It's just he can't wait for them to run out of the tunnel together. I'm paraphrasing here, but he's just so excited to be on the team. And we had a great back and forth conversation about that, and it was just really fun to talk to him about that and see his face light up when talking about playing with his younger brother. Jaden Bray, he's healthy. He's ready to go. He still has the confidence that he's one of he wasn't afraid to come back to West Virginia and compete because he has confidence in himself. Still thinks he can be one of the best receivers on the team. Thinks he can contribute. Thinks he can help the team win. Speaking of, and by the way, he's healthy as of now. Speaking of winning, let me go back to my interview with Jameer Latimer. He said, not only is he going to help West Virginia win games, he said, we will win football games. We're going to win games, he said. So just wanted to throw that out there. But him and Jaden are both confident. Both seem confident in the team. They both seem confident in their contributions to the team, what they'll be able to do going forward. Both spoke very highly of Coach Rod. Jameer actually came back to West Virginia partially to play again for Coach Rod and Coach Zach Alley. Jaden Bray went as far as to say that Coach Rod is just like us, just without pads on, and he laughed about it. But it was a very cool moment because of his intensity. Jaden loves his intensity. He loves Coach Rod's intensity, and that's the kind of coach he wants leading him. So I thought that was a cool moment. And then Coach Rod, Caden Luke came up in Coach Rod's presser. He thinks Caden Luke, the fullback transfer from Arizona, he said when he saw Caden hit the portal, he wanted a guy like that on the roster, so they went and got him. Thinks he can contribute. And for those of you who don't know, he was actually named preseason All Big 12 fullback. Asked about the O-line and DBs. I asked him about that. He basically said much of the same he's been saying all offseason, that he thinks they've improved in both positions. They went out and got a ton of experienced linemen in the portal. He said this year when they looked at the portal, they went experience, or they went production over potential. He used that phrase a couple different times. Production over potential. Now, that didn't mean they got a lot of young guys from the portal as well. So they got some guys with little experience and a lot of potential. But as far as guys, because they're trying to build a roster not only for now but for the future, right? But to win now, they wanted also to get a bunch of guys who can help them win now, who have not only played games but started games at the FBS level. They got that, especially on the offensive line. They got a bunch of those type of guys. And Rich Rod talked about that a lot in a lot of his media appearances at media days. Production over potential. And as far as the secondary, he talked about the length and how the guys got mossed a lot last year. They were in position to make plays, just couldn't make them. So they wanted to focus on length in the secondary. And they did that. Before we get on to the rest of the show, and I give you the rest of my takeaways from Big 12 Media Days, I do want to pause real quick and give a shout-out to our sponsors, Mountaineer Travel and Prize Picks. Mountaineer fans, have you signed up for Mountaineer Travel? It's the only travel site where your bookings can directly benefit West Virginia athletics. You'll not only save money on travel, but you can help make WVU better at the same time. So if you care about West Virginia sports, which is all of us, or if you have travel plans, which is most of us, Mountaineer Travel is for you. Travel with a team for a road game this fall, or book the rest of your summer vacation. Any and all of it will help West Virginia. It's that simple. Choose from over 850,000 locations around the world and save up to 50%. It's the best way for fans to make a difference. Sign up for free at mountaineer.travel or use my custom link in the description box below this video. Start booking your travel today with West Virginia. Let's go. Right now at Prize Picks, you can take advantage of their offer where you play $5 and get $50 instantly in fantasy lineups by using code HMA. Again, play 5, get 50 instantly in lineups by using code HMA at checkout. You can get there by using the link at the top of my description box. See my most recent picks. I went to World Cup soccer. I picked Lionel Messi to have more than a half a goal in Argentina's upcoming game against Switzerland on Saturday night. And I picked Harry Kane from England to have less than a half a goal in their upcoming match against Norway. You have to pick at least 2 athletes to have a lineup, and they can't be from the same team, but it's that easy to pick your lineups. And again, you can take advantage of the offer by spending 5 to get 50 instantly with your lineups by using code HMA at checkout. Now let's get back to the show. Rest of my takeaways from media day. When asked about the quarterbacks, Rich Rod said a lot of the same things. He's not going to tell you who the starter, even if Rich Rod knows in his mind who he thinks the starter is going to be, he's not going to tell us. And, I started not to even, in my interview with him, I started not to even ask him about the quarterbacks, but I thought, you know what? Everybody's going to want to know that because that's kind of what most fans want to hear about is quarterbacks. So I asked him. He gave a similar answer to what he usually gives, but he is, he mentioned about Michael Hawkins. He said he brought Michael Hawkins in to compete with Scotty Fox. Talked about how well he did adjusting to the offense, picking up the offense. We've heard him in interviews before, and he did it again at media days, talk about how Michael Hawkins is very decisive. He said usually when somebody comes in, it takes them a while to learn to make in a new system. It takes them a little while to pick up things, and they tend to be hesitant at first. He said Michael Hawkins was not like that. He was very decisive, picked up the offense very quickly. And I'm reading between the lines and, listening to what Skylar Callahan has to say on his show, what he writes in articles, what he puts on social media. He's talked to several people apparently, and it appears at least that Michael Hawkins is the leader in the clubhouse to be QB1 when they run out on the field on September 5th for the whiteout, which, by the way, I just bought my ticket for. Tickets are now on sale for mini plans and individual games for this season. But again, Rich Rod's not going to say specifically or, with certainty who it is, but he's not going to tell us that and probably until a few minutes before the opening kickoff, to be honest with you. Mentioned Rick Trickett and how Rick Trickett is coaching like he's a GA, a grad assistant in his early 20s, like he has something to prove. Rick Trickett still has that fire. 78 years old, I think he is. He still has that fire inside to be a good coach, to make players better, to help them improve as players and as young men. And very interesting, when Nick Krahe, I'm dropping a little hint here to get you to go click on my other show. Yes, I'm giving you a teaser. Nick Krahe did an impression of Rick Trickett in my interview with him. So make sure you go check that out. But he talked about Rick Trickett, and bringing him back is going to make a huge difference. I think we've talked about that all off season. I don't know if it can be stated enough. And it's one thing a lot of national, not all, but a lot of the national media is missing about West Virginia and why they will be improved this year. Speaking of that, Rich Rod says that West Virginia is going to be a better team than they were a year ago, and he thinks they're going to be better than most people predict. But what I respect is that he also said, but we've got to go prove it. He understands that you have to earn the respect. You have to earn the national media noticing you. saying good things about you, putting you high in their rankings, for Vegas to predict you to win more than 5.5 games. You have to earn all that, and he gets it. He knows that. And he thinks they're going to be much better, but he does also admit that they have to go prove it to the naysayers. Talked about how he wanted competition at every position. When they went out and got guys out of the portal, when they got guys out of the high school ranks, they wanted to bring people in that could compete for starting spots at every position. If you already had an incumbent on the roster at a certain spot, he wants that guy to be pushed, like Scotty Fox, like Nick Krahe, like Landon Livingston, whoever, you name them. He wants them all to be pushed because competition makes everybody better. He talked about that again at the presser or at media days. And then, of course, his comments about the Super League. I already played that clip for you. Brett Yormark did an interview on ESPN. I think this was on – I don't remember if this was day 1 or day 2. Doesn't really matter. And I don't have the clip. But Brett Yormark was interviewed by ESPN, and they asked him basically – because he was talking about how teams in the Big 12 are making investments, trying to get better, all this, even though it hasn't shown yet on the field in the college football playoff. He did acknowledge that. The interviewer, and the interviewer's name is not – he's a very recognizable face and name on ESPN, but his name is not coming to me right now. But he asked Brett Yormark, and he was talking about Pat McAfee, obviously. You know, there's a guy here, and I'm paraphrasing, there's a guy here at ESPN who's always in my ear about West Virginia being on the rise. You know, and it sort of asked Brett what West Virginia meant to the conference, and Brett said, hey, West Virginia is very important to this conference, and they make a difference. He said there are a couple programs, a couple schools in our league that are evolving, and they're one of them. He commented how good of a job Rim Baker's doing, that West Virginia's making investments. And then, of course, to not sound biased, he went on to say, you know, all of our programs, all of our schools are making investments. But he was asked about WVU, and he had really good things to say about them. And he acknowledged that West Virginia is making more investments to be better in football. And he talked about how passionate the fan base is. And when West Virginia is competitive, that fan base shows up. They're passionate. They make a difference. He acknowledged that as well. I recommend you go find that clip. If I can find it, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But I thought it was very cool for Brett Yormark to make that comment. Now, he was asked, in all fairness, he was asked specifically about West Virginia. But he says they're a major contributor to the league, and they're evolving, they're investing, they're getting better. So it was nice to hear that. Now, let's switch gears a minute and talk about the Big 12 as a whole. What were my takeaways? The Big 12, all the coaches seem to get along really well for the most part. They all seem to have a very high level of respect for one another. There still seems to be a pretty good vibe around the league, in my opinion, around the conference. Now, you obviously there's still the looming situation with Texas Tech. You obviously had the day one situation where the reporter asked Brett Yormark a kind of a gotcha question, and Brett it was sort of a spicy, intense, whatever word you want to use, interaction between the two. You know, so that Texas Tech, Brandon Sorsby stuff still looming. You had apparently in an interview with The Athletic during media days, you had Scott Satterfield of Cincinnati, and I think it was with The Athletic. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but you had Scott Satterfield of Cincinnati essentially accusing Texas Tech of tampering with Brendan Sorsby when they still had 4 games to go in the season last year. So, you know, now that's out there. You had a report come out that Cincinnati there has been an inquiry into Cincinnati and what they knew about Sorsby by the NCAA apparently. So, you know, that report came out by Ross Dellinger during Big 12 media days. So there's still some of that stuff out there. The conference is probably in a little bit lesser, as far as the health of the conference, probably not quite as good as they were this time a year ago, or even 2 years ago, or 3 years ago even. Reminder to hit the like button. Conference probably not in as good a spot as they were from a health standpoint, and a a kumbaya, holding hands, everybody on the same page. Not like they were a couple years ago. But I don't think the conference is dying. I don't think I don't think anybody's actively trying to get out. Now, listen, I think if any team in the Big 12 or ACC gets an opportunity to leave to go to the SEC or Big 10 and make more money, they're likely going to do it. Let's not be naive about it. Whether it's Texas Tech, whether it's Cincinnati, whether it's Utah, whether it's Kansas, whether it's Miami, whether it's Florida State, whether it's Louisville, whether it's West Virginia, whoever. I would imagine all their goals, all of them have the goal of getting into the Big 10 or SEC at some point. But as far as the overall health of the Big 12 as a P4 league, I still think they're okay. Every family has arguments. I've heard other podcasters or media people use this analogy. All families have arguments. Anytime you work this closely with 15 other people, in this case 15 other schools, you're going to have some disagreements from time to time. It happens. I don't think we need to make a big deal of it at the moment. Now, if it continues and it festers and it grows, maybe we can have that discussion. But I'm not going to sit here and pound a table and say the Big 12's in trouble because of this Texas Tech situation. I don't buy into that. The league's going to be fine. It's just a bump in the road. They'll get through it. They'll get past it. Everybody will get back on the same page. They're the only league. They were the first Power 4 league to sign the participation agreement for the College Sports Commission. That's a positive. Apparently there was a meeting between Cody Campbell and several Big 12 leaders at a steakhouse in Fort Worth, apparently this week too, trying to get all those Big 12 schools on the same page. Whether you like or don't like Cody Campbell, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Trying to bring people together. So to make the Big 12 a better league, he says a rising tide will lift all boats, and he wants other schools in the conference to invest like Texas Tech is investing. Now, one argument to that is I don't think every school has the ability to invest at that level, number one. But his overall premise is not necessarily wrong. I think every school should be investing at the highest level they can invest. And I think that's probably all he's saying is, hey, if you have the ability to invest more, do what you can do. Max out your ability to invest in your athletic programs. And I think that's all he's asking. I don't think he's asking every school to invest $50 million or $60 million into their athletic department to pay their players in rev share and NIL and all that. I don't think that's what he's saying here. I think what he's saying is let's all get to the highest level possible so we can make this league better. So that was another takeaway, is that meeting that was had in Fort Worth before. Cody Campbell, as far as I know, was not at media days. I didn't see him walking around. Had he been, I probably would have tried to introduce myself to him. One interesting note that I heard Yormark talk about in his interview with ESPN about this Monster Energy deal. A lot of controversy about the Monster Energy deal. That it's only, it's only $20 million deal, and you're getting all these jersey patches, all these field logos, and all the Big 12 is getting is a measly $20 million a year. And when you do the math, according to a report by Front Office Sports, by the time the conference gets their piece, it's about $800,000 each for the teams. I mean, it don't sound like a ton of money on the surface. But here are three things Yormark pointed out. Yes, the monetary part is great, but Brett Yormark is all in, man, on international exposure for the Big 12. And here's what he had to say. Monster Energy is going to be providing the Big 12 with an opportunity to market themselves, because I'm assuming the Monster Big 12 logo will also be on TV campaigns, digital campaigns, all around the world. Monster is in over 150 countries. And that Big 12 Monster partnership is going to travel internationally. He thinks it will help enrollment. He thinks it will help recruitment. And he thinks it will help fan engagement. Not just a Monster deal, but just having the Big 12 with an international presence will help all of that. He talks about how 14% of their student athletes are from other countries. There are 6 Big 12 schools with campuses in other countries. It's all about getting more students into these schools. Us as fans, we want to focus on what happens on the field, on wins and losses, on the quarterback, on the running back, on the wide receiver, on who's winning games. We now want to focus on NIL and rev share, but we lose sight of the big picture, which is the university level. They're trying to attract and retain students. Obviously, winning games will help with that because it brings more attention to your programs. But getting your school's brand and your school's logo will also help that. And by getting the conference's logo out there, maybe some kid in London, England, for example, I'm just throwing that out as an example, will Google Big 12, see all the schools in the Big 12, and decide, you know what, I want to look at some of these schools. And if partnering with Monster Energy gives the Big 12 a greater opportunity to expand their reach, their marketing reach, then I think that's a long-term play. Brett Yormark's looking big picture long-term. It's yes, the 800,000 is a shot in the arm. Now that these schools, let's face it, they need it. They're trying to compete with the SEC and Big Ten. They need every single penny they can get. But it's a long, and here is, in my opinion, the bombshell that he dropped that I haven't heard anybody talk about yet. He wants to use the international play, the international recognition, the exposure to monetize, have international TV rights, to monetize international TV rights at the next media deal. That's huge. Can you imagine the Big 12 getting maybe they get a separate media deal internationally with some network or streaming service overseas, or maybe if you get your brand grown overseas, companies like Apple or Netflix or Paramount or whoever sees an opportunity to, hey man, Big 12's getting all kinds of attention over here in England or over here in Europe, the continent of Europe. People are interested in Big 12 sports here. We can monetize it over there. That's what he's looking at doing. And I'm guilty of it too. We tend to get small-minded and think small. Brett Yormark is not thinking small. He's thinking 5, 10, 20 years down the road. That's what executives do. That's what CEO types do. My company, our CEO's telling us all the time, man. That's why or company president, rather, has told us before, where I work, there's a reason the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror. We don't look behind us, we look ahead. And that's what Brett Yormark's trying to do here. So we've got to stop getting caught up in strictly the money piece of it. There's more to it than that. Exposure, what's exposure lead to down the road? More money. Get away from what we get today and look at what they can get tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That's what Brett Yormark's looking at here. That's what this monster deal could potentially bring to the conference. Now, will it end up being a dumpster fire and being a terrible deal? It's possible. It's possible. Did they make the deal for too low of a number? Maybe. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet. Let's give it a chance to see how it works and to see if it does indeed help the league get a better media deal in 2030, 2031. So the final thing I want to talk about is this coaches poll that On3 did that got reported about, or that On3 did while they were at media days. Brett McMurphy did it. He had each coach vote anonymously for the team they thought would win the Big 12, the team they thought would be runner-up in the Big 12 championship game, and the team who would win it, obviously. So what two teams will appear in the Big 12 championship game and who wins it? That's what he wanted each coach to vote on. And when they broke the votes down, to the surprise of many, Texas Tech only had 8 votes to be in the conference championship game at the end of the year. 8 out of 16. BYU had like 14. And believe it or not, West Virginia got a vote to be in the national title game or the conference title game. Now, they got picked to lose it. But some coach in the Big 12 actually picked West Virginia to play in the Big 12 championship. It's possible it could have been Rich Rod. And I know people are going to say, well, you don't, in those kind of polls, you don't vote for your own team. Brett McMurphy gave them condition of anonymity, so if they wanted to vote for their own team, they could vote for their own team. But we'll never know the answer, but it would be awesome to know whether or not Rich Rod voted for West Virginia, or is there some other coach in the Big 12 that did, who really thinks what Rich Rod's doing. They're looking at West Virginia from behind the scenes, from over in another state, another part of the league, going, you know what? Rich Rod's building himself something special in Morgantown. That team's going to be better than people think. Is that possible? Is it possible that there's another coach in that league who thinks that? It could be. Because in my mind, I'm thinking if Rich Rod picked West Virginia to appear in the conference championship game, I just don't think he'd pick them to lose it. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comments section about Big 12 Media Days. What did you think about my coverage? A couple of my videos did have some funky camera issues, but audio's good. You can still hear everything going on. So please check them out. And in the Ren Baker interview, it was so bad I just put a graphic over top of it. And you can just listen, and you can look at Ren Baker's face and the Monster Big 12 Media Days logo while you're listening / watching. But interviews with Jameer Latimer and Jaden Bray turned out great as far as everything, audio, video, everything was great. But I learned something. I learned I learned some things I can do next year that if I go back to might help with that. Look, I'm learning. I'm not a tech-savvy guy. The Rogue Media team did have some folks there on hand to help me with a lot of stuff. Were it not for them, I don't even think I'd have been able to do it. So hats off to them for their help and providing some equipment that I didn't have as well. But let me know what you think about the takeaways. What was your biggest takeaway if you followed Big 12 Media Days? What are your thoughts about the poll that I just mentioned? And just what are your thoughts in general about the whole event and the state of the Big 12, whether it be the monster deal, the Texas Tech situation, all of it? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Another shout out to our sponsors, Mountaineer Travel and Prize Picks. Thank them for helping me pay the bills. Thank you for listening and or watching. God bless you, and cue Country Roads.